Again? Why does my computer keep getting calls?
Hey, there's my favorite critic.
What the fridge is going on?
Don't worry about me. I'm just here to ask if you'd like to review Disney's latest movie.
Well, sure. I mean, I was planning to. Oh, wait a minute! I remember you! You were that weird guy who tricked me into watching that stupid Ice Age movie on Disney Plus!
Hey, I'm not the one who made the film. I was just doing my job promoting it.
Why the hell should I listen to you?
Yes, I get that last one I sent you was a bit of a fluke. But this time, I promise that me and the Walt Disney Company got you something better. Something that is theatrically released.
Like what?
Well, I'm sure you're familiar with our successful lineup of live-action remakes.
Pass.
Wait, hold on. This is more than a typical remake. It's actually a follow-up to one of our highest-grossing movies, the 2019 version of The Lion King.
Pass.
No, wait, hear me out, just listen. It's actually a prequel about how Mufasa became king, and it's directed by the Oscar-winning filmmaker Barry Jenkins with new songs by Lin-Manuel Miranda.
I'm listening.
Listen, I completely understand that some of you may not be excited for this movie. I mean, this isn't just another addition to Disney's never-ending collection of live-action remakes. More specifically, this is a follow-up to their 2019 reimagining of The Lion King. And while it is one of the company's most successful movies, it is also debatably their most hated.
It's not true. Tell me it's not true.
I know that some could argue that there are worse remakes from Disney. I mean, I think that you so far can't get any worse than Pinocchio. But when you hear discussions about the problems with these live-action remakes, The Lion King is the one that is usually brought up the most, as many would say that it is the prime example to why it's upsetting to see Disney turn their beloved animated classics into forgettably bland films that are inferior when compared to what they're based on. On top of implementing minimal changes to the story itself, making it feel pointless to why you'd spend hundreds of millions of dollars on producing the exact same movie, the actual changes are just downgrades that hinder the feature, the iconic moments that they try to recreate are not as impactful as they were before, and the hyper-realistic style takes away so much of the original's charm, artistry, and emotional core that all we're left with is a picture that nobody, not even the characters in the film, could care less about. No. Okay, can I go now? Again, based on the 2019 movie's poor reputation in terms of its quality, I get why many people are coming into the follow-up with low expectations. But as much as I share those sentiments and having my own doubts over this, I must confess that I do see the potential in this. Not only does the concept itself sound interesting, where instead of just remaking Simba's pride, even though Kiara is in this, it's primarily a prequel about the rise of Mufasa and how he became the king of the Pride Lands, but this is also a movie that is brought to us by Barry Jenkins, who I highly admire as a filmmaker by giving us some great films like If Beale Street Could Talk and Moonlight, the Best Picture winner that got him his Oscar. But maybe you forgot about that because of how it got overshadowed by...
And the Academy Award for Best Picture.
You're impossible. Come on. La La Land.
Guys, I'm sorry. No, there's a mistake. Moonlight, you guys won Best Picture.
Moonlight won.
Come on, this is not a joke.
This is not a joke. I'm afraid they read the wrong thing.
This is not a joke. Moonlight has won Best Picture. Moonlight, Best Picture.
Let me clarify now that this doesn't mean that I'm expecting Mufasa to be the next Moonlight. There's just no way. But what I am saying is that I do see how there is a chance that this could be good, or at least feel more worthwhile than the 2019 film. I mean, if you tell me that Barry Jenkins' next movie is making the Lion King version of The Godfather Part 2, I'd honestly be down to check that out. That kind of sounds pretty awesome. So you know what? Let's give that a chance. Let's see if this can do what the remake failed by actually doing justice to the original 1994 film. Or especially, since this is Mufasa's movie, will this do justice to James Earl Jones? And I'll answer that now by saying, a bit, yeah. In fact, the movie literally begins with a quick tribute to Jones with a recording of Mufasa's wisdom that he passed down to Simba.
So whenever you feel alone, just remember that those kings will always be there to guide you. And so will I.
That I'll admit was nice. It was short, but still sweet. But as we get into the actual movie, it's not just about how Mufasa became king, but it's also the origins of the Pride Lands, presenting the lions' brotherly relationship with Scar before having animosity towards each other, how other characters like Sarabi, Zazu, and Rafiki came into his life, and their journey to find a new home while escaping the wrath of Kiros and the Outsiders.
We're alive! I did it! I saved us! You're saying?
As an origin story, it shouldn't come as a surprise that it goes into the same territory that these types of films go. Not just showing where the iconic elements for the original comes from, but also the side plot where two of the most well-known rivals started out as best friends. By the way, we seem to be getting that quite often nowadays, have we? But that's perfectly fine to have those. What isn't fine, however, is when the storytelling decided to speedrun its way through the movie. One problem that I have with the story is that it has a tendency to rush itself, not taking the time to let the moments make an impact and quickly go through the plot so that it goes straight into the next action scene or musical number. And not only does it leave the prequel tropes without much flavor, but it also hinders most of the characters to become flat. I say most because there are a few that do come out strong, and I think that's the case with Mufasa himself, presenting his growth from losing his parents, who were played by Anika Noni Rose and Keith David, which sounds like an absolutely cursed shipping, to gaining the skills he needs to be the proper king that we all recognize, as he prioritizes helping those in their time of need and learning from others to gain some of their wisdom. That's one thing I'll give the movie credit for. As it is Mufasa's movie, it does well to tell his story and how he earned his title as the King of the Pride Lands.
I will not bend to evil. We must fight together. We are nearing destiny, Mufasa.
Unfortunately, I cannot say the same for the rest. They were also screwed by the rushed storytelling with the way the film is weirdly straightforward and quick with their introductions, almost like they were thrown into the movie and start acting on the spot. While Mufasa got the prime focus, the others tried to implement their side plot, but they failed to make their part matter and end up looking flat as a result. Maybe Rafiki is the other exception by being the crazy but wise shaman who encourages Mufasa to believe in what he feels, but then you got Sarabi, who is the strong love interest, Zazu is the comic relief who isn't really funny, and Scar, whose real name is Taka, had a good run in the first act where he was shown growing up with a protagonist like a brother and how he got his dark traits from his father, but then when the others come in, it's like he was almost forgotten, only for the movie to just sprinkle in a few scenes to show that he became a villain because of a broken heart.
I've had enough of this. Parker, do not eat him. Wonderful. Another misfit stray we're not supposed to eat.
But there is one other exception to this, which is the main new character of the picture. There are a bunch of new ones as well, but they mainly consist of Mufasa and Taka's parents. The one that I'm referring to, though, is Kiros and the Outsiders, and they play a key role in using outsiders as a prominent theme in the movie. There is a cool message in the film where it discusses about what it means to be an outsider and how do you respond by not being accepted by those around you. Do you work hard to prove your worth, or do you project your pain towards others?
Sometimes when the people most like you don't love you, it is a hurt that can cause the greatest pain.
And there is an idea to show both Mufasa and Kiros how they symbolize their respective side, along with Scar where he goes around both, but again, the rush pacing ultimately treats it like an afterthought. They'll mention it once or twice, but none have it be enough to make it what this movie is about. But when it comes to Kiros himself, it's honestly been a long time since I've seen a bad guy this over the top while expected to be taken seriously as a threat. It's already enough that he and his pride are villainous white lions in a Lion King movie, which is certainly a choice, but since he generally wants to rule the world and take down anybody that could be in his way, the film tries to compensate for that cliche with Mads Mikkelsen's performance being so cheesy with his own villainy that it makes Scar from the original look subdued. Seriously, in his song, he tries to make the words bye-bye sound menacing, but it only adds to his goofiness.
'Cause I'm gonna be the last thing you see before you go. Bye-bye. There you go. Bye-bye.
You know, I haven't seen a villain try to be this evil since Rockadoodle when the Owls were singing
Twiddly-dee, twiddly-dee.
Honestly, if the movie was just about the origin story of Mufasa and the Pride Lands, I wouldn't have too much of an issue with the film's script. Yes, it's kind of messy, but I could see how it tries to do something new with The Lion King by making Mufasa the star of his own story. That alone feels like it would have made it stood out more than Disney's other live-action remakes, and it should have credit for the effort. But I guess we can't just let things be as simple as they are. Ever wonder why we're being told the story of Mufasa? No? Well, too bad, because the movie frequently cuts to a time after the events of The Lion King, where Rafiki tells the story to Simba and Nala's daughter, Kiara, because she's scared of the storm, while Timon and Pumbaa are on the side trying to crack jokes. In fact, the movie begins taking several minutes of our time trying to establish this before we actually start the real story of the film. These parts add nothing to the picture other than to interrupt the plot so that it can spend a minute each to be annoying, especially Timon and Pumbaa. The comedy never works whenever it tries to be funny, but these two take it really far where they think that they could try their Mystery Science Theater routine by commenting on the story as it progresses. But every attempt they do is infuriating. Not only because they're bad, but also because there's just no point to them here. They're not helping either Rafiki or Kiara, and they were never part of Mufasa's story. All they do is just bother the audience with their failed attempt of trying to have this also be like The Lion King 1.5. You have no purpose to be here. Just go home.
So just to be clear, we're not in this story?
There's a lot of stories with all of us. Tell one of those.
I'll even add that Kiara isn't helping either. I'm sorry if this is harsh, but Blue Ivy Carter in this is all nepo and no talent. Beyonce's daughter has a long way to go if she hopes to have an acting career.
Rafiki, I know who Tonka's gonna be.
Oh, me too. It's so obvious. But maybe just so we're on the same page, tell me, is it Simba?
But speaking of the voice acting, that is something that I'll say is a mix here. There are a few that make their characters seem weird, like Kiara, Kiros, and Taka as a kid with how he sounds cartoonishly British.
I thought you said you were fast. I had to let you in.
Well, I did just go days with no sleep while riding
Anyway, come on, Mufasa. Let's get in some trouble.
But there are also some good performers who do enhance their characters and help highlight their soul. Some of my personal favorites here include Kagiso Ladiga as the young version of Rafiki, Tiffany Boone as Sarabi, and of course, Aaron Pierre as Mufasa, capturing the heart of the character who went through many hardships, but is destined for greatness.
We have to swim! No, we have to fight! If we fight, we die! But if we swim, we drown! Okay!
However, if we are going to talk about a movie that is related to the 2019 Lion King, we have to discuss about the visuals, or more accurately, the animation of the film. Come to think of it, before we do, let's actually address that. I'll say now that I'm not going to go deep into this topic because I already talked about my opinion about this back in my review of the 2019 remake. But to make a long story short, I'm in the stance that this is indeed an animated movie. Even if it has a hyper-realistic style and Disney refusing to acknowledge them as such for marketing purposes, the fact that everything in the picture was computer animated and that there are no live human actors featured makes this an animated film. It doesn't matter if it's not 100% computer generated. All the SpongeBob movies have more live action than the Lion King remake and Mufasa. And if those can count as animated, then there's no excuse to refer to it as anything but that. Okay, now with that out of the way, it's also worth mentioning how the remake's animation is possibly the most controversial element, as the realistic style, while well made on its own, makes the characters look emotionless and have their charm replaced with generic-looking animals. But when it comes to Mufasa, it surprisingly addressed some of those criticisms. While it has to maintain the realism, it tries to make the characters more expressive, to go beyond the animals' realistic capabilities so that they can emote more with their faces, thus making their emotions easier to read.
Outsiders! This is not a drill!
There will be one Lion King.
I'll admit that it's nice that it took note regarding what people had issues with the predecessor and tried to make improvements to it. But did it actually improve the animation? No. Actually, I think it might have made it worse. Because now they look extra weird with how they're trying to make human facial expressions. While the cast is technically CG characters, they're still supposed to be realistic animals. It just makes the film awkward and sometimes unintentionally funny to watch when you're seeing these lions look at each other and go, "Eeeeee." And by stepping away from its initial style, it takes some of the immersion away from the experience because the more they try to be expressive, the more it's obvious that they're computer generated instead of feeling like actual characters. It's an attempt to improve itself, but ended up sacrificing some of its quality along the way. And on top of that, it still maintains the issue that its realistic visuals just doesn't work for a story like this. What makes the original Lion King great is that its story and its characters is specifically crafted for animation. Sure, you can adapt it in different ways to have puppets and people in costumes on stage, but having realistic-looking animals reenacting what we all know and love doesn't work because you take away the charm of the medium that helps it become memorable. It's like a chef mastered the art of barbecuing meat, but a company hires them to bake a cake. They'll try to do it, but don't be surprised if the end result looks wrong and kind of gross.
I seriously doubt that. It is easy to doubt everything when you know nothing.
Can we get on with this, please?
Then again, I won't hold the filmmakers accountable for that because it had no choice but to carry those problems with it as a follow-up to the 2019 remake. Even with those flaws, the film still tries to make the most out of it. And this is where Barry Jenkins' directing actually helps to make the scenes visually interesting. Fans of his movies will notice his team's techniques with the cinematography, providing some intricate shots to capture the mood of the moment and make the camera a better storyteller than the script. That, and I think the animators did a good job on some of the bigger moments of the film, where they feel better than they did in the predecessor, where the action scenes are more intense and really raise the stakes on the lions' lives, and the musical numbers feel more extravagant, where the animators do more than just walking around like before.
Let's go! Hey, did your mama say you could be up this late? Okay, she didn't say hide away.
Now, you may have noticed that there was one name that was only briefly mentioned throughout this review who was a key player in making the film. One who was both a selling point to the picture and a name who sounds like could make the experience worth checking out. If done well, of course. I think it is now time that we give the spotlight here to Lin-Manuel Miranda. Would have preferred to have him back for Moana 2, but still nice to see him return. Out of everything in this movie, from the writing, to the animation, to the voice acting, and more, I think the music is the film's strongest component. Throughout the film's history, there have been a bunch of big names who got involved, from the people who worked on the original like Hans Zimmer and Le Bohème, to new additions like Miranda, Nicholas Britell, and Pharrell Williams. And the result that they created did the best job to pay homage and capture the African feel of the original. I feel like this is definitely the case with the score, where it has the same sense of grandeur and wonder that makes Mufasa's journey to becoming king feel as powerful as Simba's. As for the musical numbers, I'll state what's probably obvious, that they're not as memorable as the originals. As much as Miranda tried, I have my doubts that Tell Me It's You will be as remembered as Can You Feel the Love Tonight.
Tell me it's you, I know it's you.
Say it again, tell me I'll always be with you.
That, and not all of them land, where some feel odd, especially the villain song with Kiros repeating,
Bye bye.
But I must admit that the better songs are actually quite good. On top of the animation elevating the moments as much as they can, it does have that mix of the original's African theming and Miranda's modern sensibilities to create some songs that can be pretty catchy and fun in their own right. When there are times when I was enjoying my experience, it's during numbers like Milele, I Always Wanted a Brother, and We Go Together.
I always wanted a brother. I always wanted a brother. I always wanted a brother just like you. If you wanna go far, we go together. So good, so far, we go together.
Again, they're not great and not all of them work, but at best, they can be around the levels of the ones from the sequels like Simba's Pride and 1.5. If the movie doesn't interest you, then I recommend to give the soundtrack a shot if you love the one from the original. This really is a mixed bag of a movie. As much as there are times that it can frustrate me with its annoyance, it also gave me some enjoyable moments as well. And as much as some things are badly pulled off, others were surprisingly well made. I don't think it's a strong movie on its own that can stand out from everything else, either in a good or a bad way, but by the standards of the Disney live-action remakes, I think it's above average. At the very least, Mufasa the Lion King is slightly better than the 2019 remake, but on its own, it's an animated feature that is almost good, but not enough to feel like the experience was fully worthwhile. As expected from these types of films, it comes with its own set of problems, with a story that keeps rushing itself, some of the characters are flat, the animation's realistic style still looks weird, and Timon and Pumbaa get on my nerves every time they interrupt the film. Then again, I do acknowledge that there are other elements that the movie did well, such as the directing, the cinematography, the action, some of the voice acting, and the music did give the movie a little bit of that spirit of what we love from The Lion King. Yes, this could be considered among Barry Jenkins' weaker works, but I'm honestly not disappointed that he did this. In fact, I applaud him for trying something new with his filmmaking skills, even if it didn't work as well as it did on Moonlight. Regardless if you care about Mufasa or not, I highly recommend that you read the Vulture article about his journey of making the picture that he and his team experienced. Even if he admitted that this style of filmmaking is not his thing, it's a fascinating read. As for the movie itself, it's not the kind to expect something that is either great or terrible, especially when the movies released around it offer those alternatives. If you're looking for a fun sequel that pays respect to its source material, then go watch Sonic the Hedgehog 3. If you want something that is laughably terrible that has a whole bunch of animals and stupidity, then go watch Kraven the Hunter. I'd only recommend this if you're a major Lion King fan who wants to see a new version of Mufasa's origin story and don't have a passionate hatred for the remake that may carry on to this. Otherwise, it might be best to wait for it on Disney Plus if you are curious. And by the way, if you had a good time with this review, then give this a like and subscribe to my channel. I also have a Patreon if you'd like to support my videos and get great rewards for helping my part in the circle of life. And to cap this off with my rating, I think I'll be giving this a 5.5 out of 10. And by the way, I've been asked what I'd also rate for the subcategories, so for those of you who are curious, there you go. And now as the sun sets on this review, it will soon be time for it to rise on another movie for me to look at. One that could maybe, or hopefully, give me a better experience than with Mufasa. But either way, I can only look forward to one thing. Just give me a movie without Timon and Pumbaa making comments.
Hi, we're here too.
Yeah, why are you leaving us outside this story when I'm pretty sure we are the ultimate outsiders? Come on.
Yeah, we've always been misunderstood.
Oh, shut up!
There you go.